So it turns out that this was the perfect week to decide that I was going to talk about fantasy magic schools, because just like in high school, I am breaking out. I love fantasy school settings. Ever since I was a kid, I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. When I got older and in university, I started watching My Hero Academia. And as of now, I am currently running a Strixhaven game in my group as our main campaign. So what if we want to make a magic school setting or adapt an existing magic school setting into D&D to actually work for our campaigns? Well, let's talk about it. So the first thing we need to figure out is, what are you thinking when you think of magic school? Of course, this isn't the most famous one, but maybe there's a particular aspect of magic school that you want to explore. For example, when originally preparing for my Strixhaven game, I was less than a year out of university, and my players were either the same or currently still in post-secondary education. These were the experiences most recent to us and the most relatable. But running it university style, where everyone's adults, means that some things that might be essential to the setting for you don't really work. You aren't going to really have students sneaking out of their dorms at night. You're an adult, you can leave whenever you want. You can't have students who hate school or wish to go to a different school. Just go to that different school. Just to drop out of that school. Nothing's keeping you there like it would be in high school or younger. In high school, you can be popular being the guy who's too cool for school, but if you're that in university, you're just kind of lame. The rest of this video will work for either setting, but be aware how the choice will affect your world and the characters in it. Another choice that you have to make is, do the players live on campus or do they go home at the end of the day? Your instinct might be that the players live on campus, but just to see another perspective, you could watch Fantasy High on Dimension 20, where all the characters do go home at the end of the day. In fact, there's a lot of useful stuff for a magical school setting that you can take from Fantasy High. I highly recommend watching it. If you're gonna run this where the students all live at the school, do the party live together? Do they live in the same building? Or do they live in totally separate parts of campus? In my opinion, keeping the party at least within the same dorm building helps with them meeting up and staying together, or if something crazy happens on campus, they'll either all hear about it at once or none of them will. But all of those examples might be good reasons to you to keep them separated. Speaking of separating students, does your fantastical magic school participate in tracking? Tracking is when a school separates students by traits, normally academic ability, but at magic schools they will separate them by the smart students and the brave students and the evil students and the useless students. On one hand, tracking is not just a problematic tactic, but ineffective. But on the other hand, people expect it when you say fantasy magic school. Personally, I really like the way Strixhaven handles this, where the separate groups are actually just departments that your major is under. Like, I went to school for film, and while film studies was my major, if I had any issue, I went to the English department because that's what my major was under. In Strixhaven, you might be majoring in dramatic performance, but your department head is Silverquill. Plus, obviously, getting to choose the group that you're a part of makes way more sense than being forced into a group of students in your first year and you're expected to not change in personality for the next 7 years. Okay, so now I want to talk about the actual school experience, what classes are like. One fun thing about magic schools is that there's a colorful cast of people that are just roaming the halls like it's totally normal. Magic schools are the center of magical study for all walks of life. And thusly, you're very likely to meet a professor who looks nothing like anyone you've ever seen before, teaching a class on a subject you've never heard of. But if your magic school is going to have everyone from Goliaths to gnomes to Eric Crocker and pixies, you have to make a building that fits the needs of all those people. Once again, let's turn to Strixhaven for a pretty effective answer. Everything from stairs to doors are designed to alter themselves to fit whoever's going through them. It's a bit of cheating, oh, magic fixes that, but if you need a way to fix it, that's your way. I mean, hey, it would be kind of cool to use a lack of accessibility at a magic school as a type of commentary for the lack of accessibility in the school system, but that feels like a different topic for a different video. What about classes, though? No, not player classes, but the players' classes. Does everyone have the same classes? Or is there maybe one mandatory course per term they all take, and the rest of the classes they get to choose? Personally, I like everyone making up most of their own classes and then having one together, so as a DM, if I want to have them all together in a moment, I can do that. But maybe you're worried about thinking of all the different names for all the classes? Well, then don't. Before session 1, message your party and ask them to make up 4 classes that their character would take at a magic school. This not only saves you the creative headache, but also, if you leave their classes on the side of your DM screen, when they go to do a history, arcana, nature, or religion check, you can make them feel special by throwing in an advantage if a topic is related to a class that they're taking. Or if they've specified that they're taking a potion brewing class, then that character would have access to the potion brewing facilities at the school. But school isn't all about taking classes. In fact, I don't remember half of what I did during class. Most of my high school and university memories were about what happened after or between classes, having lunch with friends, hanging out late after school in the cafeteria, studying for exams in the library. Sure, a major part of the magic school setting are the classes, but the part that the people actually want to play tends to be everything but that. In the real world, most post-secondary institutions aren't going to punish you if you want to stay at the school way after classes. In fact, many have areas that you're allowed to be in 24 hours a day, but we still want our players to get into the fun of sneaking around the school in places where they aren't supposed to be. Now, of course, for a high school setting, you're going to have curfews for when they need to be in their dorm spine. If they want to leave their dorms, you have all that. But for a university setting, some ideas are the restricted section of the library, locked off to only faculty with the special permissions to go there. You could also have some parts of the school that are crowded during the day, but closed down at night. So if you want to take something special from there, you'd have to break in after hours. But that of course brings into question your magic school's security. In theory, they should have knowledge of every student's location and be able to easily prevent students from sneaking around the school. But of course that's boring. You want to give your players the fun of sneaking around places they aren't supposed to go, either to relive those years or to just get to do the thing they were never brave enough to do in real life. So even if it doesn't make sense, the school's security should suck. Just a couple of teachers wandering in the hallways with nothing better to do for some reason. Trust me, it's better for the game. If you really want to add some security, like magic detectors or sensors, they shouldn't be able to identify a student. Instead, they just send a signal to the professors that someone is in that area, and then they have to go investigate and then find those students. Although obviously most of us didn't spend every evening breaking into schools to cause some mischief. I mean, look at me. Do I really look like the type of guy who did that? Most of us had clubs or activities after school, whether that be sports, theater, music, or like me, I just made videos in my bedroom that you're never gonna see. Now, you might want to set what the clubs are so you have control over the type of facilities that are at your school, or you might just want to let your players come up with their own. If a player decides that they're on the swim team, well, then your school has a pool now. I know I said I like my players choosing their classes, but personally, I prefer to give them a list of after-school activities. I would be making a list of other clubs anyways for them to interact with throughout the school year, as well as I feel like when the party are limited, they're way more likely to choose the same clubs, and therefore make it easier for me to run. And on top of that, if they really don't like the club options I have, they can always make their own club. Which now gets us to actually running a magic school. Yes, we have the setting and the choices the players will make for their time at the school, but what would a magic school session look like? What would the magic school campaign look like? Well, let's break it down. Most D&D adventures are run day by day. The party might have a week or so of downtime every couple of sessions, but a lot of D&D games have the players going from slightly above average to the heroes of the realm within a few in-game months. A magic school campaign is likely to begin on the first day of their first year and end on the last day of their last year. Removing summer breaks, that's still going to be like 1,000 in-game days. We just don't have the time to run this day by day, and if we did, the party would likely be level 10 at least before the end of their first year, and then level 20 before they graduate. Now, this is highly going to depend on your personal play style and what you and your players want and expect out of D&D. For me, I feel a more cinematic, moment-to-moment game is most appropriate here. The average school day isn't going to have a lot of adventure, even in a very adventurous year, so you're better off just frequently time-skipping and fast-forwarding to when something interesting is going to happen. Now, as the DM, you're going to need to put in some legwork to make sure that your party are still free to do what they want and not just listening to you tell your super cool magic school story where they roll dice to see how quickly the action ends. And you can do this because I run a game in that cinematic style and my players are making choices for things to happen all the time. Basically, what I do is I start a session with it having been in-game days or weeks since the last session. Someone will mention something that's interesting that's going to happen in the future, like, let's say, a Dragon Chess tournament. The NPC then asks the party if they're interested, and the party is basically guaranteed to say yes if you're preparing things that I actually want to do. For example, my entire party is in the Dragon Chess Club, so a Dragon Chess tournament is obviously something you're going to want to do. And if this thing is going to happen sometime in the future, you can just fast forward days or weeks until that event has begun. This means that we skip over a lot of days. The players just kind of get to make up what they were doing during that time, as well as the players know that if we're having a roleplay moment, that this is probably something I've prepared and is probably going to be connected to the ongoing mystery that they've been trying to solve. They also know that they're going to have a lot of freedom within the scene to do whatever they want, and overall I've just made the scene to be a lot of fun. Now, I will usually say, hey, you have 2 weeks until the Dragon Chess tournament, is there anything that you want to do during this time? And if they just say, oh, I'm going to practice a lot, then we move on to the tournament. But if they say, hey, well, we found this wand in the forest in the last session, I want to go see if I can find any information on what it is, then we'll have maybe a 5 to 10 minute roleplay section about the character trying to figure out what this wand is about, and then when they're done with that, we move on to the tournament. Even though I run my game scene by scene, I don't prepare every scene, and oftentimes I'll have in my notes, okay, we get to this point, and then I am going to ask the players what they're going to do, and then make a scene out of whatever happens there. So it's a combination of railroading them into bits that I have fully prepared, and then just letting them loose and improvising the whole thing. I mean, if you're gonna be fast forwarding through the story to the interesting things, then you are railroading a bit. If you want to run the adventure day by day, the game is going to be really slow, or the party are going to level up faster than what makes sense in the world. To me, railroading is just a tool in the DM's tool belt, but one that should just be used sparingly and carefully. At the end of the day, you can make up a million rules on what makes a good GM. And if you run a game that breaks every single one of those rules, but you had fun and all the players had fun, then those rules don't really mean anything. I can only tell you what I find fun at my table and what my players find fun at my table, and hope that you can find something fun for yourself from that. Well, my script is over 1,000 words longer than I usually make them, so it's probably good if I cut it off here. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, you can click that subscribe button and you'll be updated on any future releases that I have. Thank you again, and, well, this is the end of the video. Bye.